Hello, Budani here, and today I have an engineer build. It's a condition build with pistols as well as elixirs. It's a very powerful build, one of the strongest I came up with. That probably has to do with the insane amount of mobility, damage, and defense this build has. Let's start off by looking at the slot skills you'll be using. The first slot skill you'll have is Elixir H. This is your heal. It will also give you one of 3 random boons. Elixir U is your burst elixir, and it will give you quickness for over 5 seconds. Elixir B is going to give you 4 buffs that can be maintained for the most part. Elixir S is going to be your defensive stun break elixir that'll give you a short immunity. And Supply Crate for your ultimate. It's a skill that's basically always useful, whether it be offense, defense, or support. And you see here I open up with Supply Crate, get that stun, start off a little bit of damage, and here comes the burn. This is why this build is good. It has tons and tons of damage. I mean, it's a very survivable build, but really what makes it good is just the pure amount of damage you can put out. The pistol that pierces, as you notice right there with that huge AoE fight, just absolutely devastating. Also, the buffs you're going to be applying are going to further facilitate your bleeds and your burns. It's really just a build that works. Everything you get works with each other. All of your elixirs help your bleeds and your burns. It just really feels right. With the underwhelming kits that I found for engineer, I was really happy to have put this build together. I really felt like some of the toolkits were just absolutely underwhelming. The flamethrower grenades, and they could be useful, but it's really just not there. And while this build might not be as flashy as others, it's incredibly effective. I think this video is proof enough of that. The next thing to go over is your traits, and you'll be 10 explosives, 30 firearms, and 30 alchemy. The main purpose of the alchemy tree is going to help you maintain boons as well as cleanse yourself of any conditions you or your allies might get. It's going to also reduce the recharge rate of your elixirs by 20%, further helping that. The focus of the firearm tree is raw damage output. It's going to help you with your bleeds as well as burns. It's also going to give you an extra 150 range on your main pistol shot, making it 1050 range. It's also going to make your pistol pierce, which is incredibly useful for AoE fights. And finally, the last 10 points you'll be using will go into explosives. This gives you a 10% increase on condition duration, as well as a chance to burn on critical hits, which is very good. One thing you may have noticed about this build is the constant presence of multiple boons, including swiftness and fury. Swiftness is obviously very useful. Getting from point A to point B is crucial for objective games, and fury is going to help you bleed and burn people. Obviously these aren't the only 2 boons you'll have multiple others that just aren't quite as useful, but still pretty good. This being a condition focused build, I took Rampager's Amulet for the crit as well as condition damage. For runes I have Rune of the Monk for boon duration, Rune of the Afflicted for bleed duration, and Rune of the Crate for bleed duration. On my pistols I have 2 Sigils of Superior Earth, and the reason I made these choices, for one, the Rampager's Amulet gives the most precision you can get, and every crit is going to give me a bleed or burn or both. For the runes, I find that duration on conditions and boons is pretty much the best thing you can do for condition builds like this. The boon duration on elixirs helps tremendously. It might not seem like a lot, but keeping boons up at all times helps quite a bit, especially fury. And for the bleed on the pistols, I find using 2 of those actually improves bleed damage quite a bit. I don't know exactly how the formula works for 2 of the same runes, but trust me, it improves damage quite a bit. I'll go over the weapon skills now. Obviously you're using pistols, dual pistols, and I'll go over the skills from left to right. You have Explosive Shot, Poison Dart Volley, Static Shot, Blowtorch, and Glue Shot. All of these skills are very useful for what this build is doing, which is kiting, killing, and supporting. For damage, you have Explosive Shot, Poison Dart Volley, and Blowtorch. each of those applies a different type of condition, and each of those conditions are actually pretty high damage for those conditions. Explosive Shot is going to give you a bleed, Poison Dart Volley going to give you a poison, and Blowtorch is going to give you a burn. For support / utility / kiting, whatever you want to call it, Static Shot and Glue Shot are both pretty solid. Static Shot is going to be a bouncing blind as well as confusion, both defensive and offensive. Glue Shot is going to be an AoE ground targeted immobilize as well as cripple, which obviously will help you tremendously with kiting. Lastly, I'll go over the Toss Elixir skills available, but before I tell you what they do, first you should note that every time you toss it, it's going to be an AoE condition removal. That's on yourself and allies, and that's how you remove conditions from this build. Every time you use an elixir, you will remove conditions, so you probably have more condition removals than any other class with this. But the F1, the Toss Elixir H, is going to give protection, vigor, or regeneration to allies and anyone in the circle. Your F2, Toss Elixir U, is going to give you one of 4 wall spells. You will get Veil, Smokescreen, Line of Warding, or Wall of Reflection, and that can be used in some situations. Not the best of your tosses, but still not bad. For F3, you have Toss Elixir B, and this is going to be the same as the On Use effect, so it will grant you Might, Fury, Swiftness, and Retaliation. That's anyone inside of the targeting reticle, so yourself and allies. And finally, your F4 ability, Toss Elixir S, is going to give either stability or stealth in the targeting reticle, and that's not that great, but it can be good for like a pre-pot, I guess you could say. And that about wraps it up for this build. It's a very mobile build, very high damaging build, and very fun build. It doesn't really use the skills that you'd think an engineer might, but I find this to be more effective than any of the gadgets or tools you can pick from. And it also offers some of the most support you can, with very useful buffs as well as cleanses. As always, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any feedback on this format or the build in general, let me know. Feel free to rate, comment, subscribe. I'll be putting out more builds similar to this. I'll probably put a few more games with this build up pretty soon here. And thanks for watching.